how to write a successful CV. In this module, we will look at what a CV is, what information you should include on a CV, and how to structure your CV with the aim to help you gain employment in the country you are currently residing in. Let's start with the basics. What does CV stand for? CV is short for the Latin curriculum vitae, meaning course of life. A CV is usually the first impression a potential employer will gain of you. It is important to ensure your CV looks professional and is well structured. What information should you include on a CV? A CV usually starts with personal information such as your full name, your contact details, which we suggest using your phone number, email address, and your current home address. You may want to avoid giving your full current home address, including house number, street name, or postcode. A town or city name is usually sufficient. We would advise you to stay clear of including personal information such as your date of birth, marital status, nationality, or religion. It has become more common in recent years to include the URL or a link to your LinkedIn profile. If you do include this, ensure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Depending on your occupation, you may wish to include links to an online portfolio or a professional website. For instance, if you are a hairdresser or a graphic designer, you may wish to link to an online platform showcasing your work. But please only link to professional platforms or pages. Remember, potential employers will be able to see any reviews, comments, or possibly things relating to your personal life. Okay, so just to recap, personal information you should put on your CV includes your full name, your contact details including your phone number, email, and your location or address. A town or city name is usually sufficient. Be cautious when using your full address, including postcode and street name. You can also add a LinkedIn profile or a link to another online platform where appropriate. The next thing you should consider adding to your CV is a photo. This really comes down to personal preference. Adding a professional photograph of yourself has both pros and cons. It can add that personal touch, and your potential employer has the better chance of remembering who you are if they can put a face to a name. However, including a photo can unfortunately result in bias or discrimination. Employers may also focus more on what you look like rather than your experience and what you can bring to the company. In most parts of Europe, it is generally acceptable to include a photo on a CV. But if you do, please make sure it is professional and not casual, unprofessional, or detracting from the main information on your CV. After your personal information and possibly a photograph, we would suggest writing a personal summary. Keep this as short as possible, whilst capturing the key information about yourself. You may wish to include your key qualifications, career goals, and the skills you have that are relevant to the position you are applying for. It may be more time-consuming, but it is worth spending the time adapting the text on your personal summary to each position you are applying for. This will show your potential employer that you have spent the time personalising your CV to their job description, and this will reflect positively on yourself. Next, include your work experience. Include the job title, the name of the company, your dates of employment, and a brief description of your key roles and responsibilities. You should also detail any achievements. It is standard practice to list the previous 10 to 15 years of work experience on your CV. However, this of course varies from person to person and can depend on factors such as your age, how many previous jobs you have had, and of course whether or not you were employed in the previous country you lived in. Be careful not to overwhelm the person who will be reading your CV. If you have, for example, 8 previous jobs over the last 15 years, but the job you had 15 years ago has no relevance to the job you are applying for, leave this off your CV. You do not need to include irrelevant information or outdated information. It is likely that as foreigners trying to gain employment in your new or host country, that you will have gaps in your employment history. Potential employers will usually want to address why there are gaps in your employment history. It may be good to briefly address this on your CV without going into too much detail. A brief explanation may include something like, I recently relocated to Portugal from Poland and I am enthusiastic about bringing my skills and experience to your company. If you are invited to an interview, a potential employer will have the opportunity to ask further questions if they feel necessary, such as ensuring you have the right to work in the country. If you are currently out of employment, you should ensure you mention you are available to start immediately if this is the case. If they need to fill the vacancy as soon as possible, this may make you stand out from other candidates. After your work experience, include any qualifications you may have. Include what the qualification is, the name of the school, college, university, or other institution, along with the dates you studied. List the most recent first or the most relevant to the position you are applying for. Next, list your skills. These may be technical skills, soft skills, or certifications or details of any other professional training you may have had. If you do not have any previous work experience, or you do not have any qualifications, do not worry. We understand if you are in this position, writing a CV may be daunting for you. But please, don't worry. Simply make a list of your skills on your CV. These may be soft skills such as communication skills or leadership skills, transferable skills, or any voluntary experience you may have. If you are currently not employed and have no work experience or qualifications, you may wish to consider short-term voluntary work in your new community. Not only will this provide you with experience to add to your CV, it will also help you integrate in your local community. After you have listed your skills, you may also want to consider adding the language or languages you speak, including your proficiency level. For example, basic, conversational, fluent, or native. For the final section of your CV, we suggest adding 2 references. You may wish to say that your references are available on request. We would suggest using this if you are currently in employment and will be using your current employer as a reference. Alternatively, you may wish to list the details of your references. Please be careful here what personal information you are giving out. Once you have completed your CV, ensure all the information is correct and proofread it to ensure there are no spelling or grammatical errors. A CV should be concise and should be 1 or 2 pages in length. We hope you found this information useful. By continuing with this module, you will see some examples of CVs, along with the programs you can use to create a CV, and where you can find CV templates.